In the summer of 2015, 8 youth interns from PugetSoundOff.org worked to answer one single question: how has technology changed in Seattle? We interviewed friends, family, and community leaders for their experience and asked them to think critically about their relationships to technology.
This program has been a work readiness arts program made possible by the SYVPI, PugetSoundOff.org, Office of Arts and Culture. Hello, what is your name, sir?
My name is Alex.
My name is Adrienne Day.
I'm Barbara.
Hi, my name is Kayla.
Shauna Burgess.
My name is Mrs. Valdez. I teach at Blue Junior High, and I am the digital teacher.
Vicky Yuki.
Alright, what's up, Alex?
My name is Kabira Weddington.
I'm Villegas Ortega, and this is my grandma, Alice Ortega.
Isaiah Luna.
I'm Shamar Davis, and I am 14 years old.
TV, again, in my time, I'm 60 years old, we came out with black and white.
My generation, I graduated high school touching a little teeny tiny computer, had the green monitor, mouse didn't exist, and I never had a class. I actually had a science teacher who introduced me to the computers and programming. So my education, my background is in programming. So I'm a programmer by trade. I went into teaching as a second profession. So every generation has changed. I remember being excited about the mouse. I remember being excited about the cell phone. Students now grew up with all of this. They can't imagine life without a mouse. They can't imagine life without a cell phone. Touch screens. I just got my first touch screens 2 years ago. They may have already had them.
Well, back then, they had the flip-flop, and they had to, only a few stuff that you can get, and you had to, text it like this, but mainly just flip-flopping, and then that was it. Put it in your, that's the one that I remember, especially me being 60 years old. So.
What kind of phone do you have now?
Oh, actually, I still have the same.
I remember black and white TVs. That was one of the questions.
Ooh,
I remember telephones. I was talking to somebody about telephones, about how telephones were belonged to places, so they didn't belong to people.
That's
so
right.
if you call somebody, you have to call some place. You call their house, you call the school, you call their job, you call the doctor, but you never call the person. And now it's all about calling you. Like I call you, and you answer the phone. It doesn't matter where you are, and that's a really different thing.
It went to colored, and then the big box kind of console, and then it keeps changing, and now it's flat screen, and it's great. And even on your TVs you can it's great, a lot of stuff that you can do, so it's great.
So it's impacted me a lot growing up, and especially socially, I think, because like Facebook and, well, back when I was young, MySpace.
How do you think technology will impact Seattle?
Well, I think it will impact us in both a negative and a positive way.
I can go back as far as the 70s in the Central District because that's where I was raised. I grew up on 18th and Yesler. So as a child, I could stand on the corner of 18th and Yesler. I could hear the ferry horns, and you can see them coming. With all of the new buildings and constructions, you can't see that anymore. But that was something that I really enjoyed.
I watched a lot of changes just from growing up, having a Walkman to a CD to MP3 players, and I've just watched a lot of transformation in my life, and it's made a lot of things easier, but it's also changed kind of like how people interact with each other, and it seems like people are definitely a lot more tied and dependent on their technology than they were in the past, and people don't always interact as much as they used to. Everyone's constantly on their devices, so that's another change I witnessed. So it's good and bad in a lot of ways.
Also, the redlining in the 80s, they redlined the Central community, and I speak, when you say Seattle, I speak about my Seattle and what Seattle means to me, because that was my Seattle at that time. And so once they started redlining the Central District, because in the 40s, I'll go back, it was a covenant, and that's when people of certain ethnic backgrounds can only live in certain areas. And black people, our covenant was the central area, better known as the CD. And so moving forward, now we going back into the 80s since they've redlined. And a lot of the women in that area were domestics, because those parents of the 50s, you had pretty much a traditional household where the women stayed home and reared the children, the men went out and made the money. And so a lot of those men, from their hard work and their efforts, and with medicine not being what it is today, we're not living as long as we are now. So the women were left to take care of the property and things like that, and they weren't allowed improvement loans on their homes. So their homes started to deteriorate and get worse, and then people started to come in, and investors, and buy those homes at a lower rate because they were denied improvement loans, which started to change the dynamics of my city, the Seattle in which I lived in, the Central District. And then you had your gangs that moved in. You also had technology that had started to come, because back then it was Boeing and your Todd shipyards and things of that nature. Now it's your Amazons, your Googles, your Microsofts. And once they brought in their new developers, they made it to where if you're going to build apartments, you have to have storefronts on the bottom. And one reason is because they're running out of space. They no longer have houses with beautiful yards, and people are no longer having the large families and needing that abundance of space.
Technology is affecting your life?
I do think technology is affecting my life, and I feel that way because I know that I could be a lot more focused on school and homework and family and things like of that matter, and I know that my phone takes that away from me, and sometimes even being on the computer takes that ability to focus on those things away from me.
Because I have a phone and I've experienced how it's affecting me, because I go on it a lot. Like every day I just can't stop going on it.
Technology, I think it has affected Seattle in a major way. They've come up with so many, newer smartphones. There's iPhone 6, iPhone 5, and technology is just evolving as generations go by.
Personally, I've had a lot of run-ins with just averagely my phone, and with my family when our phones crack or they break or something of that matter. It's our policy tells us one thing, but then the people that we get on the phone with tell us another. And it's we thought our phone service covered this, and it only covered this amount, so we have to pay more or extra for a phone that we've already paid so much for.
We were smarter individuals because there was more memorization. We didn't have a cell phone with a contact list. You either carried a little phone book, but back then most people memorized those 7 digits.
It's changing Seattle a lot. I feel like even with the companies coming in, number one, opportunities for young people and other people, older people as well, in terms of jobs. You have Amazon, that is a big company in Seattle now. Expedia is moving from Bellevue, coming to Seattle. So obviously opportunities for people. And also, it's going to make us a city that's advanced, in terms of, I feel like technology is something that is going to be needed in every single part of life, almost every part of life now, because you need technology to apply for jobs. To arm and disarm your house, maybe some people do need, technology and things like this. So I feel like it's going to impact Seattle a lot.
Technology is making everything grow at a rapid pace because it gives individuals that don't have cars an avenue to get anywhere in the world within seconds. Having said that, we're busier, we're able to buy more, we're able to learn more, have access to more. So technology on that sense is a good thing. However, I think technology also makes, for a lazy community. And that's speaking from someone who was born in 1972 So I've been with the word processor, the 8-track, the typewriter, up to where we are today.
Has changed because we've had a lot of residue from places initially, their companies initially being here and then moving, and even with the nearby places around, there's constant congestion and with the traffic and everything. So it affects Seattle by just transportation. It's a lot busier, and I feel as if people are going to get, again, lazier because everything's always booming, and we get first come, first serve, basically.
Well, we have the new buses, which run off of technology. They're hybrids, and so it helps the ecosystem by not polluting the air with the gases and stuff. And so now they made a new way to make the buses more safe for the ecosystem, so they run off of technology and they're more safe for the environment and people's breathing.
And so it starts to look different because all of those people migrating here, taking those jobs, they need a place to go, and then you have your urban sprawl and all of this development, and you can see it just based on these companies that are coming in and what their interest is and what they're lobbying for and what they need. And then once that is taken care of, it starts to feed back out into the community.
Living in Seattle but going to school in Puyallup, it does make my life a lot more difficult because even though it's very early in the morning, people feel like that if they leave early that they get to jump on everybody else's traffic, but 20,000 people think the same thing, so they're all on the highway, and they think they're going to beat traffic, but they really don't. So the congestion builds up, and it kind of makes it a lot more difficult for me to get from place to place, especially having a job and things like that.
About little kids ages 5 to 10 having cell phones. They're gonna lose them real quick. So you think they'll lose them?
We chose not to give him a phone when he was 10. We waited until he got to middle school. I think that he really becomes I guess, I don't want to say obsessed, but he becomes very involved in what's going on whenever there's technology around. And it's really hard for him to gain focus. And so I try not to let him have too much technology around, and having a phone. And unfortunately nowadays a lot of phones are all smartphones, so he would have access to the internet and lots of other different programs and applications that I wouldn't necessarily want him to have unless I had some more oversight over what he was doing.
That they should use them less often, because I think they should focus more on education and be on their phones after they do their homework or something like that. They should stop using them and focus on do some other activities than be on their phone all the time.
Do you think having technology causes violence?
If you use it in the wrong way, then yes.
Do you think technology is causing violence?
No, not really.
Yes and no. Yes, because it all depends what you say on the internet. You can either start stuff or be a part of something, or just be cool and don't start no drama free.
How do you think technology will be in the future?
It's hard to say, especially because now kids are using technology at such a young age. There's 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds that know how to use iPads better than me. It's a lot. Yeah. So because their brains are already working that way when they're so young, then I can't even imagine how it will be once they, grow up and get in the field of creating new technology and stuff like that. So it's definitely going to evolve a lot and very quickly.
About technology in the past, it was exactly that of the past, because technology today is, I like to say, real time, always changing. And so what existed yesterday or way back then, I think it's kind of irrelevant in a lot of ways, but we certainly have to start there in order to get where we are. You find technology is fluid throughout most of our lives, and I know for the work that I do, I'm constantly using technology, and it's almost like when I don't have it, there's something missing. It's like there's a piece that I can't connect to, minus the technology. So I think technology has changed our ways in which we live, we think, how we interact with each other. When you think about social media, how much technology has like advanced that on so many levels, and there's so many options and means to technology today. So I just know just a lot of my students, they use it just in so many facets. It's unbelievable, even in ways that I don't use it. And I think sometimes I don't use technology as broadly as some of my students do, but I think at the same time it has allowed us to be able to communicate more effectively.
I think that there's just a lot of opportunities that are in this area. There's a lot of people. We have there's so much interest, and there's this readily available work source, and I think that if we can align the two, then I think we have a great makings for a great city. And I think that I would love to see more local hiring. So what we do with the Department of Information Technology and Community Technology programs is we work with digital equity initiatives. So we want people to be able to access it and to adopt it, and then to create their own content. So like what you're doing now.
It is changing, and I'm okay with that. What's going to come next? Well, maybe one of these guys will figure it out. Or invent it. They'll be rich. And I'll still be teaching.
It has been a unique experience for me, and I feel blessed to be a part of this city. I would not want to have been born anywhere else. It's a beautiful city. I am not so excited about some of the changes, but I think change is good, and with change, you know, you have to be vulnerable and open to new things. And so it just makes me be a little more vulnerable and open to what's new to come. And that means if something new is coming, then I have an opportunity to learn something new. So I try not to look at it as a negative, but it can be overwhelming. But technology also helps us because it allows us to be able to touch things without buying a plane ticket, and experiencing things and having more access to things. So